Anaheim from a distance. The NAMM show from my armchair, rather than having to put up with the enormously long flight with American customs and all the guns and violence that greets you the moment you step off the plane, the illnesses and viruses you can pick up from all the lovely people at NAMM by meeting and greeting, the noise, the deafeningness, the rubbing shoulders with rock stars and celebrities and all that talking to people stuff. Thankfully, no, we can just sit here and stare at the coverage and without having to put any clothes on or freshen our breath or anything of that nature. So it's great. I much prefer these sorts of NAMM shows. I did used to go to NAMM show back in the day when I worked at Turnkey Music Shop. I used to get taken out there for reasons I can't fully explain. But for some reason, they believed I was some kind of asset in that situation. I think what it was is that I knew a lot about computers and music technology, because that was my thing. I was very narrowly focused on all that, and so they took me over there, the people who ran Turnkey, to be the person to spot interesting bits of software to distribute in the UK. So that was my job. So I did that for a few years over at NAMM, and I'm not necessarily the most outgoing networking sort of person, and so it was quite painful. Often I would wander around this hall by myself, the halls by themselves, poking around at bits of software and trying my best to talk to people, which was difficult. So I don't think I was particularly successful at it, but I was there. I did it. I went to all the parties, got very drunk, I seem to remember. And back then, I could also... Oh, hang on. Have you got... I'm talking to myself and there's nothing going on. Ah, bollocks! I'll have to come back to this then. Are we back on? Somebody say something over there. Because my stream health, okay, has gone poor. It's gone poor. Back on the greens. Anything happening over there? Back on the green. Buffering. Somebody give me a poke. We are live, you say. You're back. I'm back. Oh, well, I just shared this most fantastic story, right? And it would blow your minds had you been here. But instead, my mind is blown by myself and my awesome story. But you're okay there. You can hear me. Okay, good. Well, I'm just going to have to struggle on, I suppose. I mean, over here at the moment, we have a bit of a storm going on outside, so everything's shaking a bit. And that does tend to wobble the internet wires. And that could mean we cut in and out. Or what's probably more likely is that my wife has turned on Netflix. That's probably it. But hey, we're here. So are you all there? Good, right, okay, so shall I tell the story again? I don't know whether that's worthwhile, because my own thing here is buffering, which is a shame. Hang on, I'm just going to try to, always the best thing to do is not to touch it, but I'm going to touch it. Just see if I can make this work so my chat is at least working. You caught the story, did you, Cliff? Nice one. Oh no, this is not looking good. It's not looking good at this end. Is it looking good over there? Oh, you just don't want to have to deal with this sort of stuff. Oh look, I'm back to myself. Well, that's something. Right, let me just pop out the chat. NAMM then. Yes, NAMM. So, by way of introduction, if you've not been here before, we chat about music technology, we chat about new products that have come out, or we chat about stuff that just enters my head, or whatever it is that comes up in the comments. This is my show, and I make no apologies for all the terrible things that I say, except that I'm really sorry to start with. If you feel that I've insulted you in any way during this broadcast, it's not intentional. I love everybody and I love everything, but I'm also can be quite sarcastic, and I just say what I feel, man. And I mean nothing bad by it. We're just chatting, we're just shooting the breeze, or whatever it is that people say. And that's the plan. That's the plan, what we're going to do. And this evening, the plan is mostly, I imagine, to talk about NAMM. What we saw at NAMM this weekend. Although, I wouldn't mind doing a little bit of fiddling, because I decided this evening that I was going to try to make the Varigate 4 Plus become a drum machine. And then it sort of did. And it's like, wow, that's really good. And I want to play with that some more now, rather than talking to you idiots. But, well, here we are. But then if it grinds to a halt, then that's fine. I'll be happy with that, as I am with anything else. So, gather round. We're already nearly 10 minutes in. and we haven't got anywhere yet, other than my awesome story that nobody heard. But so yeah, I've got me beer. This this month, I've got the Red Rye Captain Pale Ale. I hope that's all right with you. I hope that gets the seal of approval. It'll have to do anyway. If this goes on too long, I might have to get hold of the bourbon. So, Behringer equals NAMM, does it? Ah, that's where you're wrong, because Behringer weren't at NAMM. No, they were an hour down the road in some other place. A lot of that goes on, actually. A lot of the dodgy hotel stuff. There was one year that I went to NAMM where we were actually taking a product. We took our Carillon audio system when we had the first prototype done. And the idea was to show it to people, to go, look at this, isn't this awesome? People like Guitar Center, so we get them to buy it. And so we took it along. And we tried to get people to come back to your hotel room to look at it, because we didn't have a stand or anything at NAMM itself. And that's just that's the worst conversation. You know, you're talking to somebody, hey, would you like to come back to our hotel room to look at a computer? Oh, very weird. So, I mean, Teenage Engineering did that as well. So did Dreadbox and people like that, saying, you know, dodgy hotel rooms, bunch of gear out, inviting people around to have a look at it. No, really weird. It's a really weird sort of fringe that goes on around the NAMM event. But Behringer did a big one. They did a big thing over in the other side of town somewhere, because they don't do NAMM. I don't do NAMM. I think, and people say they do that because if they were there, then all the manufacturers would come along whose products they've cloned and poke them with sticks or bash them with spoons, that kind of thing. I don't actually think that would happen, but they decide to do their own thing, and that's fine. And it was good, actually. I mean, we can start off with Behringer if you like. Do you want to kick off with Behringer? I could have a look. Excuse me, excuse my nose. What do other people want to talk about? You know, do I care what other people want to talk about? No, all right, then let's start with Behringer, because today, apparently, they have a post-NAMM announcement. Surprise, a release. Something else which is going to happen, which may well happen while we're here. So, do keep an eye out, and if you find out what that is, stumble upon what that is, just checking my levels, then let me know. Let us know, and we'll talk about that as well. But of course, it's probably going to be a TB303 clone. That's what we're all expecting. I mean, what else could it be? Something massive? I don't know. No, just something like that, I think. Something like that. Because it fits in with everything else they've done so far. They've got the whole roll and range going on, so that would make the most sense. And of course, it would sell like crazy things. Of course it would. Because they'll do it for $199 or $149. Whoa. And that would be a thing. Now, I've come to a bit of a revelation this NAMM, because it's been a good one. I mean, overall, my impressions of NAMM this year is that it's been pretty good, pretty interesting. A lot of good stuff, I think. Previous NAMMs, I found that a bit kind of, bit of this, bit of that. Yeah, so. But this one, I felt quite up about it, to the point at which I am trying to work out how I engineer my own synthesizer collection. I mean, obviously, I'm dedicated to the Eurorack, and I don't want to upset the Eurorack by saying things like synthesizer. So I'm still committed to all of that, but it just sort of occurs to me that having a bunch of synths is a really great thing. Could be a really great thing. I'm also, I mean, I can work in all sorts of angles, like, I want to expose my kids to more technology, to more music technology, and it's difficult to use this because it's, there's a lot going on and it's never quite set up, and in order to get your kids interested in music, I think things need to just be available, and things like my Eurorack isn't particularly available. Well, first of all, it's in the shed, and then it's usually taken apart half the time. So in order to make gear more available, I think, maybe I should get a synth. Maybe a drum machine. Do you see where I'm going with this? So the Behringer coverage has been very, very interesting. I mean, we've heard about all this stuff for months and months and months. We know about the RD808. We know about the MS101. We know about the Odyssey. All these things we know about, and they're interesting. But when it came to them doing their presentation, their live stream they did of these synths, I was looking at them going, you know what, they're flipping awesome. I think they're right. I think Uli Behringer is going to become a legend for the right reasons, because he is releasing all these synths, all these things that we actually want. We want these already. We know we want these, whereas other synthesizer manufacturers are stabbing in the dark. They're going out there trying to produce something forward-looking and futuristic and different and interesting and all those sorts of things, which is great, and we love all of that, absolutely. But we've been banging on Roland's door for 2 decades saying, you know, can we have another 808? Really? I mean, okay, I know you've got the, I don't know, the MC303 or something, some crazy groove box thing with the light beams and stuff going on, but I just want a drum machine that works as nicely as the 808. You know, and they've done a bit of that. To their credit, Roland have done a bit of that. That's fine. That's good, in fact. But Behringer have given us exactly what we want. And we want an SH101. Roland again tried to do it with the boutique, but as a little weenie, and it wasn't actually an SH101. It was sort of kind of modelled like, sorry, it just feels like my shed's going to fall down. So yeah, sitting there watching this presentation, and you're going, you know, an MS-101, what, 299? It will be 300 quid, 349 over here, I'm sure. But that's the price of a module. You know, one of these modules, I could actually get a synth that I could stick in the house, you know, on the sideboard somewhere, and the kids could play with it. And then if they've got a synth, maybe then a drum machine would be nice too, like the RD808. Because you just got to press some buttons and set it going, and you can do stuff, and you can learn stuff. I mean, when I was a kid, my dad was into electronic keyboards. He was into, you know, terrible things. And he bought a Technics keyboard that had automatic accompaniment and brass sounds and flute sounds, that kind of thing. And it was that got me started, because I was having piano lessons, hated the piano lessons, but I could transfer the little bit that I'd learnt into this keyboard and make enormous tracks with banging disco beats. And I want my kids to discover that, but they can't discover it if there's nothing available for them to discover, if it's not out there, if it's not accessible. So this is me talking myself into the idea that, you know, I could somehow find £1,000 from somewhere, you know, if I work extra hard. If I write 4 reviews for Sound on Sound one month, drum up some extra cash, maybe I could buy a drum machine and an MS-101, and that would be really groovy, because they would work well together, and my kids could make tunes for the little games that they play. So yeah, one of the purposes of this evening to talk about the stuff from NAMM is to also talk about putting together our little shopping list. What is it that we would actually buy if we could? Because were there things worth buying? Well, I've got my list, so I'll talk about that, I guess. But I might also look at what you do as well. So yeah, so later on tonight, potentially, unless they already have, not that I can read, potentially, yes, Behringer releasing another product today, so we'll look out for that. Maybe we'll find out by the end of the show, and we're expecting it to be a 303. Yes. So how did you lot feel about the Behringer? Have you softened it? Do you still believe that Behringer is this evil corporation that's cloning everybody's work and getting producing crap synths based on other people's work, and it's all plastic and crap, and you're welcome to believe all of that? That's fine. You know, I'm asking your opinion, trying to gauge opinion. Or are you softening to them? Do you think it's the best thing ever? And are you going to buy yourself a Behringer anything? Is that going to be something which you're going to find? Comments please now. Ding, 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 ding. Do it now. I'll have a swig of beer. Okay, so my picture has only just taken a swig of beer, so therefore he's only just asked a question. So, yeah, okay, Pro 1. Pro 1 looks irresistible. Yes, I understand that. The Pro 1 is particularly good because it looks like something from Sequential Circuits. Now, what I don't like, actually, about it is that it's in that form factor again. Same as they did with the Model D and the Neutron, in that same sort of form factor. Same as all the Moog stuff, and the Mother 32 and the DFAM and that sort of thing. And I don't know, it's a bit small. It's a little bit fiddly. I know what they're trying to do, but it doesn't sit particularly well on the desktop in front of anything else. You know, you'd have to put it up in a rack in order to have a couple of them, otherwise they sit badly behind each other, as you do on a big long row. So yeah, I'm very much into the Pro one because it's sequential almost, but it's not the form factor that thrills me particularly, because when I buy a synthesizer, I want to buy a synth. I want to buy a synth. Ooh, I want to buy a synth, not a thing, a desktop thing. Does that make sense? I don't know, but yeah, I think it's got a lot going for it, and also they haven't messed with it too much. Does that matter? No, not really, but they haven't messed with it too much. It's more or less, a direct copy just without the keyboard. I would have preferred it in a keyboard form factor myself, is what I'm saying. I think I like that. Bill, I think, is saying recent quality is good. Keep it up. If they keep it up at the end of the day, it's fine, since Roland have been dining out on the same idea for years. Yeah, fair enough. Loic will get the Oberheim clone when it comes out, or if it comes out. It will. They've been pushing that. I get the feeling that Yuli really loves the Oberheim thing. And whatever happened to the guy? What happened to the kid and his Oberheim? The Relic 6 was it called? Whatever happened to him? 2 years ago now it was, that kid brought his Oberheim clone to NAMM, and he was there last year, but not with anything. He was just hanging out and said, oh yeah, don't worry, it's still under production, blah blah blah. Still no word on that. Has anyone got any news on that? That would be good to hear about. But the likelihood is that Uli's going to release his for what, $499, you think? I mean, who's going to be able to beat that? You've got a Model D? It's old news, man. Not interested in Model D anymore. Deep mind, yeah. What modules would you recommend for getting into modular? Ask that question again later. Because going into it now would just go on and on. So ask it later if I see it, or give me another poke, or just drop me a line, drop me an email, or a Facebook post, or a comment underneath the video, and I will happily answer that question. But just in a minute, now we're going to move on about the NAMM stuff, yeah? Dude, what? Why, what did I do? Yeah, that kid's interesting. That kid's instrument is amazing. Yeah, it was. It was fantastic. But where's he gone? Assuming we're talking about the same thing. I mean, I don't have any idea. Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was like 17. Yeah, I mean, his website hasn't changed since that NAMM 2 years ago, and he's still got schematics on there and stuff they're going to do. And I was just kind of hoping something would come of it. It was encouraging, or at least he could have kickstarted it, something. But he probably just went back to school. Maybe he got a girlfriend. You see, that'll ruin it every time. Waiting for Behringer to do an ARP 2600 clone. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's on his list, I think. Guido had an original Pro one and sold it for 50 quid. Yeah. I've sold stuff in the past that it would just make you cringe. We don't understand the value of things. We never do. You appreciate that far more. You have to wait till you're much older. It's only then that you look back with regret at the value of things that you sold. What, were you crazy? I just had a lovely Telecaster guitar I sold. But then, I was homeless, so what are you going to do? Busk with it? That ain't going to work. Okay, Michael Stengel says he'll pick up the VC340. So what is it that attracts people to the vocoder? What is it? I mean, I've got one over here. Got one over here. There you go. Herbie Hancock. I don't know. I mean, a whole load of synths, right, come with these bloody microphones sticking out the top. All my kids, that's all they want to do. They want to go when they come in and have a play. They're not even on the right patch, but that's all they want to do. People understand microphones. So why are they popular? What is it about the vocoder? I mean, it does one sound. It does one sound, which was cheesy when it was cool, you know, and is cheesy now, even when Daft Punk do it, in my view. Now, I understand that it also has strings inside. It does a stringy sound and kind of a human choir sound, and that's okay. But I don't get it. I don't get the vocoder thing. I just don't. I don't. No, I don't get it. But I mean, I'm not saying, like I said at the beginning, I can be completely insulting to you because you may hold things incredibly dearly within your hearts, and I might just go, that's rubbish. But that's just how this is. It's a bit spiky. I'm a bit spiky, bit sarky, and opinionated. And so to have a good time here on the Molten live stream, you've just got to relax a little bit and be chilled, because I still love you, even if you like vocoders, you know. So yeah, I might, and then so tell me all about it, and I'll ignore you in the comments. Oh my god, I winked. Oh god, no, don't do that. The Behringer iPhone, yeah. No. Okay, well, everybody's throwing in all sorts of stuff from all over the place. Got to stick to the plan, man. I was talking about Behringer, but it doesn't really matter. We'll talk about other stuff. Doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't care. So, yeah, so the 808, RD 808, yeah, I could definitely see myself buying one of those and sticking it on a table in the kitchen somewhere in the living room and letting the kids play on it. That'd be great. I might dust it every now and again. It might reinvigorate some music making of my own. I don't know. So I would stick that with the MS 101, which they really confused me with the coverage at NAMM, because it suddenly, when they officially released it, excuse me, it was released as the MS 101 RD. I thought, what on earth does that mean? I even wrote it up as an article going, it's now called the MS 101 RD. What's the RD for? And that, because in their marketing, it was constantly always called that. And I got to the bottom of it going, blah, 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 about to publish. And I thought, oh, it's red. It's red. That's what it is. They're only releasing a red one. They talked about having a whole rainbow of colours, but no, only the red one. So, right, let's try to keep a grip on what we're talking about. So was there anything else from Behringer that was worth mentioning? The Pro one was there, but it wasn't really demoed much, but then they did a little demo on it, but then it was as if it wasn't working because they used the MS-101 to trigger it as opposed to its own sequencer. So it didn't appear to be working. But then I'm pretty sure that DivKid has one. So I think it does work, but they just didn't really have one very much for the show. They also had a 909, but it was again non-functional. So they're not all completely there. I mean, part of the problem, I think, perhaps that Behringer have just gone a little bit overboard and have overpromised rather. They need to just chill out, relax, you know, take a step back. I mean, they're about to give us the 808, the Odyssey, and the MS-101. That's cool, you know. Stop promising more than you can deliver straight away, because then we either get tired of it and get bored and then ignore it, you know, or we start losing our faith in your ability to deliver, you know. But anyway, there's one more product to come apparently, so let's move on to actual things that are at NAMM. Now, of course, the big thing was the Micro Freak. Probably was the biggest release of the show, would you say? Micro Freak Arturia, did you see that? Now, I have a little story to share about that, because slightly controversial, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, everyone's probably aware of this by now. But when they released it, one of the key selling points was that they collaborated with Mutable Instruments in order to produce a lot of the algorithms for the oscillator. Because the Micro Freak, if you haven't seen it, let me use a bit of visual what's it while I do this. Micro Freak. Bam. So that might be helpful for people who aren't aware of what the heck this is all talking about. So the Micro Freak is this fella here. See that? Sort of arty picture. Got a better. There we go. There's a better picture. See that? Yeah, it's a little synth from Arturia. It's got a strange touch plate, sort of PCB type keyboard on it. but it's a digital synth that has a digital oscillator and lots of playful bits and pieces, sequencer, all that kind of stuff built in, all the usual garbage you find. It has also a filter based on the SEM, which is nice, as opposed to their own Steinberg, Starker, Parker, Junior. Steiner, I don't know, they do some other filters. Anyway, but the key about all of this story is that they have this digital oscillator and it can run different algorithms, so essentially different oscillators within this one. And they had said that they collaborated with Mutable Instruments in order to take Mutable Instruments algorithms from the Platts, essentially, their multi-oscillator, the Platts module from Eurorack, and they put a bunch of those inside as well. Great, a collaboration with Mutable Instruments. That's awesome. So you're looking at the video going, oh wow, it's great. Look, they've even, you know, done some of the design as a bit very mutable, and that's awesome that they've got together, because we all love Mutable Instruments. They're fantastic. And if Arturia have got together with them, then this is going to be an awesome product. And that was how it came across at release. And looking at it, I thought, yeah, this is pretty groovy. I quite like it. Yeah, I think this could be very interesting. And I love the fact it has mutable stuff in it. And for me, that made it a potentially much better product than it would have been had it just been Arturia. It would have been awesome by itself, but this just pushed it out, and you think, wow, that's great. But then as I was looking at that, writing it up, researching it, and because I've spent all weekend trawling the internet for, you know, leaks about products in order to write it up as news and that kind of thing, that's been my job this weekend, I came across a little bit of a conversation with Emily from Mutable Instruments on Reddit, of all places. I mean, I don't like to spend a lot of time on Reddit, but I do sometimes, because there is a bit of stuff on there. But there was this conversation where she was going, she's a little bit pissed off because there was no collaboration at all, not in terms of any kind of definition of collaboration. And everyone went, what? So it turns out that Arturia had asked Emily at Mutable Instruments if they could use their the algorithms, and she said, yeah, all right, that's fine, because it's open source, man. You know, she's into everybody having it. You know, have it, man. Go do your thing. I mean, it would be great if you could put my logo, you know, in there somewhere and mention that, you know, where these algorithms came from. That would be tops. And so Arturia went, great. And then what Arturia seemed to do is go, we're collaborating with Mutable Instruments. We're partners. We're partners with Mutable Instruments. Aren't we awesome? And that this synthesizer was designed in collaboration with Mutable Instruments, when actually none of that occurred. They just used her algorithms. And she had no input whatsoever on the design of it, on how anything worked, on the look of it. And this was winding her up because she was getting congratulated by lots of people getting in touch with her going, oh wow, what a great synth, well done, that's awesome. And she's going, well, it wasn't anything to do with me. And it was this sense that her reputation, if you like, was tied up in the synthesizer, because a lot of people have been asking Mutable to do that kind of synth for ages. And she felt that she didn't want her reputation attached to something of which she had no input. She had no input at all. So it might be great, but it also might be terrible. And that would reflect poorly on her when she had nothing to do with it. So she was aggravated, quite rightly, by this, and was starting to speak on the internet that no, it wasn't a collaboration, and this isn't quite right, and that she's a bit annoyed. And it's not that she doesn't want people to enjoy it. She's got nothing against Arturia as such. It's just that she really wants people to understand that she was not involved in the production of this synthesizer, and that was important. And I think that's important. And so I saw that as a bit of a story. So I wrote that up as well. And but I held off on publishing it because it felt like it was an unfortunate occurrence. I didn't feel like, oh, this is a story, right? We can get in there and like really make Arturia look bad, and that'd be great, get lots of clicks. Yeah, but that's just not kind of us, you know. We're not the Daily Mail. And although it was a story, so it was interesting because it was interesting, we held off. And I started reaching out to people at Arturia saying that, you know, you need to step up and do something about this, because Emily's not happy. And during this time, she'd now posted a bit of a statement on her website saying that, you know, in response to the microfreak, everyone's telling me this, and I just really need to make it clear that it was nothing to do with me. And she was as nice as pie and as lovely as you can imagine in what she put across and how people should react to it and how people shouldn't look at Arturia badly or anything. It's just that she had no input into that. And she just needs to make that clear. And that was cool and everything. But I felt that this story was going to break and people were going to be rubbishing Arturia, and it would take a lot away from the release of what ultimately was a really cool product. And so anyway, so I pushed out at Arturia wherever I could find, because I don't actually know anybody there anymore. I used to back in the day. Anyway, but yeah, I poked a few people and sent off messages and stuff. And eventually I heard back that, they had seen it and they had word about it, and they had contacted Emily in order to sort it out. And then shortly after that, the CEO, I think, of Arturia got in touch with her and just hashed it out and said, and basically apologized. Sorry, we really didn't mean to do that, because Mutable Instruments is their hero, the same as it is our hero. And so you could imagine that it was their exuberance in working with Emily a tiny bit that made them think, oh, this is awesome, and it's the optics of it are amazing, and it'll be fantastic, and let's do that. And the fact that it wasn't exactly true was neither kind of here nor there, and that probably didn't enter their heads. And so they've changed it, and now the copy on the website is different, and they're now talking about Mutable Instruments as their friends that they have borrowed these algorithms from, and that's cool. And they've just calmed it down a little bit. But that was a little bit tense. It was a bit stressful there, because I was also imagining this story was going to break and it was going to go bad. And also the journalistic side of me was going, well, if it was going to break, well, then I kind of want to break it, because what I'd said in my article about it, I went to great lengths to make sure that people could see that what Arturia had done perhaps was not malicious, was not with anything other than good intent and hero worship. And I was really trying to balance these two things out at the same time as sharing Emily's plight, because she was genuinely upset, so it seemed. Interesting. So it all kind of worked itself out in the end, and I never posted an article about it at all. So it just kind of resolved itself, which I think is the best way. And I'm really pleased that did end up like that, because I don't think Arturia should be punished for misspeaking, if you know what I mean. And it looks like it's a really cool product. I would really quite like to have a go on one, and maybe it would make it into my own little in the house synth collection. There's no way I'm going to be allowed to keep synths in the house, is there? But anyway, so yeah, the microfreak. So there you go. That's my little story on that. That was quite exciting. That all happened Friday night, I think it was. And I'm just really, really, really pleased that it got resolved. I'm pleased for everybody, because I felt that if I'd published about it, it would have embarrassed everybody. I don't think Emily really perhaps realised how public she was speaking, perhaps. And Arturia, I'm sure, because they're a nice bunch of people, would have also been embarrassed. And I'm really glad that I was not the engineer of that, and I like to think that I had something to do with it being resolved. Well, I'm going to continue to believe that, regardless. So, Microfreak. All that aside, what do you think? What do you think? Is it on our list? Is it on our shopping list? No, nobody gives a monkeys. See, that's what I love about this community, that they're just happy to sit there and chat. In fact, I think perhaps what I've become background noise. I've become the background noise around a community of people who just come together and chat. And that's nice, I mean, maybe I'll start... No, maybe I won't. But that's fine. I can't sync up with the comments. That's what it is. I'm sure there's a lot of really good thought in there about my amazing story, and you're just keeping it to yourselves. Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe it's all still buffering out in Wonderland, and so you're just amusing yourselves. Fair enough. So let's find something else. Is the poster on the back Forbidden Planet? Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, she did explain herself. Yes, that's good. I mean, you can imagine the Arturia developers. I mean, how that went. They're developing a little synthesizer, and it's got a digital oscillator which will take whatever algorithm you like, and yeah, they're messing around with it. They've developed a few of themselves, going, yeah, this is good, this is good. And then some bright spark over there says, oh look, I've just ported in the Platts algorithms because they're open source, right? I've just stuffed them in, and don't they sound fantastic? And then someone else went, oh wow, that's a great idea. Should we do that? Yeah, all right, let's do that. And then that gets bumped up to marketing, and someone has to reach out to Emily, and then you can imagine that's kind of where it ballooned from. And that's cool. It was just an unfortunate marketing accident, I suppose. But yeah, something different, something very unexpected. No, I don't think anyone was expecting anything like that. I don't think I was expecting anything new from Arturia particularly, but they're good. They like new stuff. The audio fuse as well. They've got a new audio fuse which looked kind of nice. It's a bit chunky, the form factor, but I like a desktop form factor. I like lights, that kind of thing. So yeah, good stuff. There was a rumor that there's more stuff to come. I mean, they also mentioned how the Micro Freak is the first in the Freak line. So you can imagine there'll be a drum freak at some point, and a mono freak, a mini freak, matrix freak. Who knows? But I kind of half expected there'd be something else this weekend. But no, that hasn't come to be. So we're just going to assume that there'll be something coming later on. We do have Music Messer, which no one goes to anymore. And then, of course, we have Super Booth in May time. So probably something around that sort of time. But yeah, the Micro Freak looked very interesting. Right, next. We also talk about next. What do we do? Pocket Operator. Yeah, okay. So the Pocket Operator Teenage Engineering thing. Let's talk about that. Teenage. So that was remarkable. That came out before NAMM. And at the time I thought, wow, that's really exciting. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? And I even said in my last video that I take back everything I said about Teenage Engineering. I'm not so sure anymore. Why is that not working? Go on. Search for me. Search for me. No? No, maybe it will. Teenage Engineering. So if you haven't seen them, it's these extraordinary synthesizers. Look at that. You go, wow, what a thing. I mean, first of all, I don't quite understand why it's a pocket operator. It doesn't have anything to do with the pocket operators. Pocket operators were calculator size, little sequencer, synthy, drum machine type things, which were great. They were cool. Had a lot of fun with those, I suppose. So I don't quite understand the association, quite understand why they call it the pocket operator. On the other hand, I do understand why it's taken so long for them to get out the OPZ, because everyone was working on this because it's far cooler. Now, I think I might have said all of that in my... No, I didn't say it in my... I can't remember. Anyway, but so what it is, essentially, it's a whole new modular system. There's a 400, a 170, and a little keyboard. The 400 is the big yellow one. The idea is it comes as a kind of a kit, a snap-together kit, and you have to bend the bits of metal yourself, put the modules in the back, and you've created yourself a modular synthesizer. Now, in all the demo videos that people were doing, it just never came across very well. I mean, I understand now that Basak has done a really good video. That's great. I haven't seen that, but ignoring that for the minute, starting off with what I did see, was a lot of people fumbling around trying to get some kind of sound out of this mystery box. It was painful to watch, it was. And the guy, Tobias, is it, who's demonstrating it, obviously hadn't played with one before, and they were all a bit clueless. I mean, somebody pointed out that in the marketing photos, the patch cables are actually plugged into things that don't do anything. You've got an output plugged into an output, for instance, stupid things like that. So you get the feeling that the only people who have played with it are the photographers, who don't have any clue what it is anyway. So from that point, I was slowly getting this realization that no, everything I said about Teenage Engineer is probably still right. In that they're an enthusiastic bunch of kids doing this stuff that just can't seem to quite pull it off. I'm not sure. I mean, the main the main problem I think with the 400, the big yellow one, which is the only one they had working, is that it has no way to play itself. So there was this one particular video done by Future Music, I think. I can't believe they released it because it's just awful. You're sitting there going, oh, this is terrible, as they're fiddling around trying to get something to sound more than just crap. And you're sort of like going, oh God, just put a pulse in. Put a pulse from the LFO into the envelope. Go on, do something to make it make other than a sound. Like, come on, guys. And they're all in there. There's like 4 or 5 hands trying to turn knobs and patch things in. There's so many patch cables. It's like, oh, just pull it all out, man. Start with an oscillator into amplifier. Do that. Can you hear it? Yes. Okay. Then an envelope. Okay. Can't hear it anymore because I need to trigger the envelope. Right. Get something to trigger the envelope. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. You know. Do that. Just do the basic stuff. Don't stop trying to make it clever. God, gee whiz. I'm thinking, oh, this is never going to sell it. Never going to sell it. Because, I mean, the design is great. I love the design. I love the aesthetic. But if it's crap to use, then it's a waste of time. Waste of everybody's time. Will it actually happen? I mean, it was the first one that the guy demoing it had ever built. And like I say, none of the other bits were working, but it's all supposed to be out in a couple of weeks. How is that going to happen? And they're already sold out of the first lot. I mean, who bought the first lot? I mean, it's not going to be... Because they were talking about how it's a great system for beginners. People who want to get into Eurorack, into modular synthesis, because it's... You know, it's simple and straightforward, and you're putting it together, you're understanding where the blocks go and bits and pieces. So it's great for beginners, great for schools, that kind of thing. So, but who's bought the first run? Not people who want to do it, who want to get into it. The people who bought the first run are all the hipsters who want to have it sitting on their sideboard at home, who are never going to use it, going to play for it for 2 minutes and then just leave it there as a piece of art. That's who's bought the first lot. Have any of you lot pre-ordered the 400 series? Let me know, and then I'll point my finger at you and go, yeah, you're not really going to use it. You know, I mean, what's great about bigger manufacturers doing modular, I always think, is that it gets it into music shops. Because a lot of Eurorack, unless there's a specialist shop near you, I mean, there's like 2 specialist shops in the whole of the UK, 3 maybe. There might be Rubber Dub, Cymru Beats in Wales. No, that's about it. Well, there's probably a couple of others, but you know, few and far between, and you're not going to get a chance to try the stuff out. Whereas something like the Pocket Operator Modular is more likely to appear in your local music shop, and so you could go and have a look, and then, you know, buy one and walk away with it. I mean, that's awesome. That's really opening up modular for far more people, but not in pre-orders. No, that's all the people with far too much cash and don't know what to do with it, buying up pretty things because they're pretty on the internet. Anyway, why are we talking about this? Well, but it was a shame that the sequencer wasn't working, because that would have really helped them demonstrate their other products. It's like, you know, all the things they did wrong. What they did is they released a product looking fantastic and awesomely designed and photographed on their website too early, because it wasn't ready. It wasn't sounding right. None of the bits worked. And they didn't even have a place at NAMM. They had to have a dodgy hotel room. So you ended up with dodgy videos and in badly lit hotel rooms that looked terrible, with bad sound, trying to sell a product which wasn't quite ready, that no one was familiar with. You know, in my view, it's a classic PR disaster. But they're sold out, so I don't know anything, obviously. People are still lapping it up. But personally, they should have done the website in March and then taken it to Super Booth after they knew what they were doing, with someone who knew how to work it, with all the bits functional. That would have been my advice, you know. But then what do I know? Anybody else got any thoughts on the thing? Let's see if I can find any at all. No, people talking about other things. Oh, I still haven't got there yet. Let's go down. La di la. Johnny Cog says, you don't understand all the unnecessary flack that Teenage Engineering is getting. I didn't know they were getting flack. I mean, they get a little bit from me because they annoy me. Not about the products. Well, no, it is about the products. Well, it depends. I mean, the OPZ, for instance, I don't get it. I don't get it. But there we go. That's fine. Other people do. Lots of people do. But with the Pocket Operator Modular, I think it looks fantastic. I think it's a great idea. Concept is awesome. Design is awesome. I love the fact that they're thinking about Eurorack and that the signals match up, and that you could, if you wanted to, put it inside a custom faceplate to put it in your Eurorack and it would work. All of that's brilliant. It's just they fumbled the release because they weren't prepared for it, didn't quite know what they were doing, and not everything worked. You know, if they'd left it a couple of months until they were better prepared, I think it would have done them a lot of good. But I don't think this has done them any harm. So I'm just talking purely from what I would have done had I have been them. Because obviously everything that I do is far more professional. But I mean, there was one thing that Tobias said at the time that I thought was interesting, which is that they're just a tiny little company. There's only a handful of them doing this business. But they very much project this idea that they are enormous. But they're not. They're a tiny company. They're not Korg or Roland or even Arturia. They're really small, giving it a go and producing some fabulous products. And they're not necessarily going to get everything right all the time because they're just a bunch of people having a go. And I thought, yeah, fair enough. So, yeah, I'm completely allowed to vary my opinion on it from minute to minute. Yeah, the cost was the other thing. People saying it's a poor man's modular. Not really. I mean, it's still 500 quid for a mono synth. You know, okay, it's a bit modular like, so it has a few modules in it, but only small, simple ones. You know, there's things like AE modular that are around a similar price, I suspect. But, you know, essentially it becomes a semi-modular synth, doesn't it? Almost. It becomes like a Mother 32 is about 500 quid because it's not Eurorack. You're not having to put 200 quid into a case, for instance. So, yeah. So it's cheap. It's good. It's properly priced, I think, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think it's desperately cheap, but it's not expensive either. Cool. So does anybody have one? Has anyone ordered one here? Anyone? They are creative. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Techno Bear, you were convinced later on. You saw some videos. So I probably need to seek them out because I've been massively trying to cover every release of everything. As soon as I've written something up, I then ignore it. I try to look at something else, find something else to write about. So I probably need to go back and reassess the Pocket Operator Modular thing. Probably. Yes. Baby size hands. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. I mean, Teenage Engineering are into weenie knobs. That's all I can say about that. They just are. So, ooh. What's the crave? Sorry, I've missed the crave. Is that something I'm supposed to know about? Local technique, you've mentioned the crave, I think, a couple of times. I don't know what that is. Don't know what that is. Or do I? I don't know. Waldorf Kiri then. Okay. Kira, rather. Let's have a look at that. So the Valkyrie, we saw that at Music Messe last year. Slightly fascinating. It was a big, ugly looking desktop sort of synthesizer that was packed full of sounds, and it was massively digital. It wasn't based on DSP, it's based on FPGA or some other form of programmy, computery stuff inside. It was capable of massive amounts of polyphony that was always possible because the little brains inside were working really hard. Dealt with masses of wavetables, masses of oscillators, 10 oscillators I think per voice, 128 voices, they all crashed together, thousands of oscillators, thousands of sounds, and it kind of sounded all right. This is one of these terrible things about synthesizers, is that you hear masses of these specs of all these crazy things that are going on, and then it just sounds a bit like burr, 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 Does it really sound any different or better than anything else? I don't know, but that's one of those arguments you can have over and over again. I don't necessarily want to go down that road. But it was interesting. Anyway, so this guy who didn't really play very well was doing poor demos of this thing called the Valkyrie. And it was the only interesting thing that was at Music Messe last year. But the CEO from Waldorf ran into it and thought, this is bloody marvellous. This is fantastic. He saw the potential and grabbed it, probably gave the geezer, you know, some money or something, and has redesigned it into the Kira, which is much, much bigger, looks fantastic, I think, for that kind of synth, and is probably going to do really well. It's taken a long time, I think, to get where they are, because it doesn't seem to have changed much in terms of specs. In fact, it seems to have lost 1,000 wavetables somewhere. But otherwise, the design and layout, yeah, it looks great. There's a lot of stuff going on, and the guy who's demonstrating it, who seemed to be from Korg, was awesome. He was fantastic, doing a great job. That's top class demos, and he knew what he was saying. He was able to reel it all off quite naturally, and it came across as, yeah, this could be a really interesting synthesizer. So yeah, that's really just the Kira. That's as far as I know about it. It's a crazy digital thing with lots of big sounds. It's very, very high quality audio, high fidelity sound, that kind of thing, and very manipulable. But of course it'll be multi-layer menus of everything, but they did have a good bunch of knobs on the front. So yeah, interesting, but I kind of expected to see it for real by now, but there's still nothing on their website about it, and it would be good to have a bit more information about the specs and how it goes, and some more demonstration sound videos, all that sort of rigmarole. Maybe we'll see more of it at Super Booth. So that's the Kira. La la la. I'm drinking my beer too quick. I've now lost the ability to read. Behringer's new synth is Crave. Alright. What? Tell us about that then. What's the Crave? Spill the beans? Do we have something on that? Anywhere? Behringer Crave. Behringer Careers, it says. Okay. Behringer Crave on Gear Sluts. Images. Ultra Patch. Attack of the Clones. I think I'm on the wrong computer in order to find out what that is. The Crave, okay. This is their one more thing. Should we watch it together? Yeah, it's from that PCB, isn't it? We saw the PCB before. There we go. So, what do we make of that? Well, it's a bit like a 303. It doesn't look anything like it, which is good. It means it's their own sort of thing. Looks like it's got a bit of a synth going on. A bit of a sequencer going on. A whole stack of CV on it, which is interesting. I mean, the demo was a bit acidy baseline, I suppose. Maybe that's deliberate. But it's not. Doesn't look very cloney to me. I mean, of course, everything's using the same oscillator chips these days. Does that make it a clone? I don't know. It means everything is, doesn't it? But yeah, interesting. There we go. Thanks for that. Who was that? Tonal Man. So, Behringer Crave. I should probably now nip off and have to write it up. I'll do it at the end. That's all right. That's fine. What time are we on? 9 o'clock. Okay, an hour down. Not doing too bad. So there we go. Last one from Behringer was one of their own, something that they've done themselves. We've seen the PCB before, I'm pretty sure. But I remember something with all those CV patches, the patch points on it. So there we go. They've produced presumably another kind of monosynth with a bit of a 303 style, perhaps, sequencer built in. It seemed to have a little keyboard type shape to it. Cool, possibly, maybe, I don't know. Is it as cool as an SH-101? Is it cool as an Odyssey? I don't know, but all right, I'll find out more about that later. So there we go, we did find out what it was. That's great, thank you very much for that. But remember, you don't need to go and find out about it now. You can do it at the end. Okay. Red panel. Yeah, thought red panel stuff was interesting. Buchla. Interesting because I've been writing about Catalyst Audio for the last 2 years. Dave Small, I think it is, at Catalyst Audio, has been producing these Buchla modules. The 100 series, which only actually refers to a particular synthesizer in some San Francisco library or something, I think. Anyway, it's not like the 100 series like Roland or something like that. This is something else. But they're based upon particular modules that are made for a particular synthesizer that he's been redoing and putting into Eurorack. And he's done like half a dozen modules. And 2 years ago, he was just starting to put them out. A year ago, he was in full release and available, that kind of thing. This year, he seems to have been grabbed by Buchla, who, have done bugger all, really, for the rest of us. They've just kept themselves to themselves with their big, high-end West Coast weirdo stuff, and which is great, cool, love it, and all that. And so they grabbed hold of what Catalyst Audio were doing and went, well, that's fantastic. We can actually reach people with normal budgets in that Eurorack world that we don't really deal with, and get some Buchla stuff in there. So it was funny looking at the video when they're talking to the older guy who was talking about it, saying how these modules would not pass through Buchla's quality control. The Buchla Association, or Associates, I think he called them, they would not endorse these modules because they're not good enough. They're not high enough level of something or other. But for you Eurorack twerps, it's good enough, So we're going to sponsor them or something along that line. Put our name to them. But they're not really Buchla. Not really. But, have some fun with stuff that sounds a bit like us. It's just not quite as good. Or something. That seemed to be the vibe, which I felt was a bit off, to be honest. But anyway, they're called Red Panel, and they have the word Red Panel on their creamy panels, which is a bit weird. But apparently Red Panel refers to this panel they had dipped in LSD back in the day that was formed part of the synthesizer. And as you played with your Buchla, you don't play like that with a Buchla, I don't think. You sort of go, whoa. And you certainly did, because you would start licking this panel and start seeing peanuts walking around the top of your thing. I don't know, and you would end up patching for days in your pants, having not eaten anything for weeks, completely off your tits. Well, that's what happens, I guess. It's those West Coast California type vibe, man. But that was quite interesting. So that's why the Red Panel comes from, apparently, which is cool. Yeah, man, do that. So yeah, so now we have a range of reasonably priced, as in normally priced. They're not cheap, as Buchla was saying. Oh, it's all very affordable. Well, no, they just cost the same as normal modules. And there's a whole range of West Coast Buchla modules, which cover all sorts of things I don't have any idea about. Things like wavefolders, I imagine, low-pass gates, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, they look pretty good. I don't have any plans myself to introduce any of that into my rack particularly. Other than a low-pass gate, I do have a kit of a low-pass gate I want to build and put that in because I find that interesting. I would be interested in the what's it called? The natural low-pass gate from Elephant something? I forget. The natural gate from Elephant, I think it is, modular. That looks really good, but it's far too expensive and far too exclusive, and I don't know what I would do with it, to be honest. I've got far more other things, more important, bigger holes to fill in my rack than getting 4 low-pass gates currently. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, and good on Buchla for getting on board with something, and I'm glad that Catalyst Audio have got some support, because I think they're making great stuff, working really hard. No one seems to be noticing, and I think this is going to be a great help to them, and I hope that really sorts them out. Cool. Right. Yeah, poor man's Buchla, I guess. But it's not, of course. It's not as good as that, so don't think that. And, of course, also there was that Sensel Morph flappy controller thing done in a Buchla style, like the Buchla Thunder. Buchla Thunder, that's the word I'm looking for, which was interesting. I mean, the Sensel Morph is another one of these products that we saw over a number of NAMMs that never seemed to actually happen, and now it kind of has happened, and then everyone's sort of forgotten about it. So they've released this officially endorsed Buchla Thunder thing, which is a controller that has, it's very easy on the fingers, and you're able to move MIDI about the place because it's a MIDI controller. Well, of course it is, although originally the Buchla Thunder was also a MIDI device, funnily enough, and it also their own MIDI protocol, which was called something else that I forget. So you can generate MIDI in all sorts of interesting squashy sort of MPE sort of ways and send pressure and location and touch and stuff. So yeah, that looks pretty cool. It's quite expensive though, I have to say, and it's more expensive than any of their other overlays that go on their touchy-feely squashy thing. Cool, right, anyway, talk about something else. The red panel did that. Right. Do I prefer East Coast or West Coast? Frankly, I don't understand the appeal of West Coast. I understand East Coast better, if that's what we want to call it. I understand subtractive synthesis better, I suppose. But, I mean, elements, it crosses over all the time now, I think, which is good. It's good that it does, because there are elements of West Coast which bring something different. They bring something different in the way that they treat sound, and in also the way that they control sound, because East Coast ultimately gets confined to the musical keyboard. I mean, Moog made that happen, because after they did their first modular, the very first thing they did was produce a keyboard for it, so you could play it. So East Coast very much gets constrained. I mean, this is all actually off the top of my head. I don't know any of this as fact, but my understanding of it from the back of my mind is that East Coast is very much constrained by equal temperament, by a musical keyboard. Of course, it doesn't have to be. I don't have a musical keyboard attached to my Eurorack, and that's fine, and few people do. But we do find ourselves very much referencing the Western scale of note making, whereas on the West Coast, there were no keyboards. All right, yeah, there's a touch keyboard thingy, but it wasn't set up like a musical keyboard. It was set up with 12 spaces, I suppose, which could be a musical keyboard, but not necessarily. And there was no emphasis on making it fit into equal temperament or making it fit into that. It was much more the idea of experimentation with pitch, as well as with noises and bangs and envelopes and everything else going off. So it was much more free-flowing, I think you can say. And it was the fact that the keyboard for them in the West Coast did not exist allowed them to generate far more experimental tones. I think that's the idea. But then the reality of a few of those things coming out is that you get low-pass gates, which we use all the time. You get wavefolding, which you use all the time, because the very basic ideas of East Coast, which is subtractive, is that you start off with a waveform and then you take stuff away. So you have a pulse, square wave, sawtooth, and you filter it. You use a filter in order to change and take away bits of the sound to make it sound different. With West Coast, you start with a simple tone and then you fold it to create more complex tones. So it comes at it from a different way. It comes at it from a simple place to get more complex. East Coast starts sort of complex and gets simpler. Possibly. I mean, that's my interpretation of it at this time. But there's a lot of mix and match now. A lot of mix and match. And I understand subtractive because that's what I've used the most. But I'm quite happy to use whatever tools bump along. I mean, I did have a no coast, make noise no coast for a good time. But actually, I just didn't really... I didn't really get anywhere with it. I tried hard, I just didn't quite understand what I was doing, and that's why I understand filters, I understand those sorts of bits and pieces, and I get more joy from understanding that. And if I could spend more time understanding something else, then maybe I'll get more from it, but sometimes I don't have the time to do that. So anyway, so yes, I am primarily East Coast, I would say, but I don't like to compartmentalise, I don't like to shut these things down. So, you know, be whatever you want. Be whatever you want. New Vobos. Vobos. What did Vobos do? Verbose. Verbose did... Oh, the mini horse. What's that about? Yeah, they got this thing called the mini horse, right? I've no idea what that means. But it was a mini touchplate controller thing. Also, they had a CV generator. I mean, it's kind of stuff, to be honest, the Verbo stuff is stuff that's a little bit over my head, as in, it's not immediately useful to me, generating control voltage. Yeah, I can see how that's useful, but not in my particular rack at this particular time. It's the kind of thing you need when you know what you're doing, and I'm not in that camp yet. The qubit stuff, on the other hand, yeah, I love that. I mean, I love the stuff they did last year, although I never seem to ever get my hands on any. But this year, the cord, yeah, definitely updated the cord brilliantly. I thought that's absolutely everything they needed to do with the cord, because the cord was this huge module that can generate polyphonic tones, and then you set chords and it plays pads, I suppose, in your Euro rack. But it was big, and just, you know, too much, lots of space, take up a lot of your Euro rack, and it wasn't really doing enough. So as a version 2 they've cut it in half in size, they've made it more interesting, it's much more playable, you can control voltage yourself through all sorts of chords and different sorts of qualities. Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. The other one they did, Bloom, was it? Fractal algorithm sequencer. It was kind of like a Turing machine, I suppose, with bells on, where you could dictate paths of randomization and bits and pieces. Yeah, I think that looked really interesting. But like the nebulae they did was also interesting. They did a couple of really interesting things last year where you choose paths, the way things go, and I find that quite interesting. And they had another one which I forget now. I suppose I could look it up, couldn't I? Is my thing keep going to go sleep every 5 minutes? So Q bit. Why does that come up? The dread box. Oh no, well, the search function, I have to say, on the Gear News website, it's not the best thing in the world. You tend to get everything most of the time. It'll be here somewhere. Yeah, there's a verbose stuff. So yeah, mini horse and a control voltage processor. Yeah, la-di-da. Stereo effects, that was the other thing they did. Yeah, stereo effects unit. Let's find out more about that. What did I write about it? Prism. Multi-dimensional signal processor. I kind of grasped it, and then I didn't think it was explained very well, but you seem to be sitting on a prism, like some kind of three-dimensional shape within space, and you had different effects planted in different corners, and as your sound moved around from place to place, it was more affected by one thing than another. And yeah, that sounded quite interesting. It sounded like a lot of fun to play with. So yeah, cool beans, I think, from the Prism, which is here. You see that? Just looks like a module, doesn't it? I know, I appreciate that. I'm sorry that I can't give you more detail. I mean, I understand that some people out there in video land do things like swap in screenshots and stuff, but I don't have any clue how one does that, and I don't think that's important. So yeah, that was that stuff. 2HP also had some things out there as well which were interesting. I mean, 2HP, obviously everything they do has to be quite simple because of the space they're talking about, but they were quite... You had a DC offset. Yeah, it's really boring. They had a bell. quite into that because I really love my pluck, and to have a bell thing going on as well, that might be interesting. If it sounds a bit marimba-y, a bit vibey, see, that could be interesting. Quite like the idea of that. They had a granular thing and a sine wave which had wavefolding, which is a little bit West Coast, you could say. So yeah, interesting from 2HP. Cool. Now, what other things are other people talking about? Animal Head Spirit is disappointed that Behringer made no mention of their rumoured entry into the affordable Eurorack modules. Well, they did mention it. During the live stream, the old guy, David somebody or other, he did mention the Eurorack and just said it was awesome that he's doing that. But none of it's ready yet. It's still very early days on that. But yeah, it was mentioned. It's there. I mean, as I said before, Behringer tend to overshare. And so we hear a lot of things like they've spoken about the ALP 2600 and CS80s and other bits and pieces. And so we think that's going to happen like soon, but it might take years before they get there. And they ought to keep more to themselves, I think. And then surprises. I mean, I like nothing better than being surprised with a product that's actually available to buy. That's just the best thing, you know? It's like, here we have a brand new synthesizer. You can buy it now. That is what you want to do. I hate all this. Oh, yeah, we've got a PCB or something we might half thrown together that's going to be available in a couple of years. Oh, that's just really dull. Kickstarter has that vibe a little bit. Are you actually ever going to see it? That's the thing. Bitwig 3, Techno Bear, thank you for that. Bitwig 3, yes. That looked awesome. I mean, I have a massive soft spot for Bitwig. I use it a lot in live performance, and fiddling around with it because of the it's a really good piece of software. It's missing some stuff when you're doing big audio projects, perhaps. But in messing around with loops and stuff, and messing around with the creativity they got in that modulator section and the devices section at the bottom, it's always been awesome. So now they've introduced the grid. The grid is just giving you a window into which you drop lots of different components in order to create either an effect chain, or, excuse me, or a monophonic synthesizer or a polyphonic synthesizer. And that's all right. I mean, there's lots of other environments out there like Reactor, like Audulus, like Max for Live, that sort of thing, who do a similar vibe. But what I like about Bitwig is that they are striving all the time to keep it as simple and as visual as possible. And that appeals to me on multiple levels. So not only do they have their little blocks that you can wire together, but it's all animated. You see the signal going down the line and the display here and the knobs moving here and this moving there. Brilliant. That's exactly what you need in that kind of space. So you can see what's going on, and interpret that without just seeing this massive stuff and going, I haven't got the faintest idea, which is what Reactor does to me whenever you look behind the panels. So yeah, I really appreciate what Bitwig have done. I hope there's other improvements in there, because it's a whole, to go from version 2 to version 3 and only have done one thing would seem a shame. But it looks really exciting. I'm definitely going to be into it and talking about it, hopefully do a review of it, all that kind of thing. I think it looks great. Good job, Bitwig. There was quite a bit of door action though. Digital Performer from Motu dropped version 10. And the interesting thing about that is that they've stuck Ableton Live inside. So, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Digital Performer because it's been a Mac piece of software for years and years and years. And although now it is Windows, it kind of came about onto Windows a bit when I was getting a bit bored of computers. Started looking at other things. So I haven't really looked at it deeply. It always looked a bit like Logic to me, similar vein, and said, yeah, no, that's fine. But now, what was interesting is that they put in this grid. Maybe I can find a picture of it to show you. Mo2, and it was the clip launching, classic Ableton Live clip launching window page. So you've got your loops, your MIDI loops or your audio loops, you drag and drop them in, you set them up, you've got your faders at the bottom. It all looks exactly like you expect it to look. So can you see that picture there? Do I have a larger picture? Not really. So yeah, it's a clip launch kind of thing. And but what is different about it, they've done something completely genius, which is rather than having the scenes down the side, or they kind of have that, but let me try to explain. In Ableton Live, you hit a scene at the side and then all that row of clips plays, and you zoom around and play the one you want to play, or you can do individual clips. With the DP10 one, what you do is you queue them up. So when you want a clip to play, you hit it and it drops down to the bottom and forms, it lands on the stack at the bottom of the screen. So you stack up your loops in how you want them to go. Does that sound right? So the bottom row is playing, and if you want another loop to play, you hit it and it will stack up on top, and when it reaches the end it will then go to that one and then go to that one, and you stack them up like you stack 45s on a record player, you know. And I thought that was really interesting, because it's like they've taken Ableton Live and they've done something different with it. Rather than just mimicking it or, you know, doing something very, very similar, they've actually introduced a dynamic which is interesting, and a different way of looking at it, a different way of doing it, and you can stack up different things, and obviously you can pull things out of the stack, put things into the stack. And I thought that was quite a revolutionary idea that made me sit there for a moment and go, wow, that's actually really good, really clever, well done. Cool. The other door that was there was Waveform 10. Traction, who have produced, you know, the Waveform door is absolutely phenomenal. The way they present it often on their website, not so much. It's quite difficult to grasp what it is that they do. But when you hear them talking about it, like in some of the videos I saw of the coverage there, you start to go, oh wow, this really is phenomenal. Some of the stuff in here is fantastic. Nobody does things like this. I mean, they had a lot of things in their version 10 which was catching up. They had a few things about windows popping up and floating windows and such like, because they've always had a single window approach that has been quite constraining, I think, within that. And although they've doggedly fought to keep it, now they're starting to float some windows up because it makes more sense in some environments, in some situations. And that's really cool. But I can't for the life of me think now what it was that was really cool about it that I thought. No. I can't think what it was. But there was some excellent stuff in there. Waveform 10. I mean, Traction have been on to me about doing a review of their software ever since I did a review of version 7. I did a review of version 7, which is now like 3-4 years ago. And it was a phenomenal review. Fantastic. And it's one of my best highest viewed videos, particularly now as version 7 is free. A lot of people have come back to it now and seen my review and have understood why it's flipping awesome, which it is. And ever since then, they've been asking me to do the next version. I say, yeah, no problem, version 8. Yeah, I'll do it. Oh, it's called Waveform now. Great, yeah, I'll do it. It's on my list, it's on my board over here. And then it ticks around, another year goes by, and Waveform 9 comes out. And I go, no, I'll do it. I'll definitely do a review. And now version 10's come around, and I'm going, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I really must do a review, but I think this is going to be a good one to do. And it's really hard reviewing a DAW because it's such an immense program that you have to get into the right headspace to approach it, because you could end up spending weeks and you have to try to focus down, and that's difficult. And so I always try to find myself something more easy to tackle. And I've always meant to review all the DAWs, but it's just such a mammoth task to try to put an entire DAW into a video that's about an hour long, because mine are always about an hour long. It's hard, man. And so I tend to avoid it until really pushed into it. Anyway, there you go. So Waveform 10, check it out. It's awesome. And while we're talking about Waveform 10, let's talk about the Mock Wave Razor. Wave Razor is one of the most fantastic synthesizers you have ever seen. Software synthesizers. It's fabulous. It looks awesome. It sounds awesome. It's very, very touchable. It's great. It's angry. It sort of spits at you, fights at you. It's this thing here. And what they've done, you see that? They've stuck it in a Eurorack module. They stuck it into a 1010 Music, one of their modules, because 1010 Music produce these digital modules that they run software stuff in, and it's all the same, you know, a whole bunch of patch points, bunch of knobs, and they've been all right. They've not been my cup of tea particularly, but there you go. But now they've taken wave rays, or at least the oscillators from it, and stuffed it in to this Eurorack module, which is flipping amazing because it's a great thing, an awesome sounding thing that all folds in on itself and craps itself up. And now it's available in Eurorack, which is fabulous. I mean, it's a great synth by itself. If you're into software synths, check out MOK Wave Raiser, because it is phenomenal. And I'm now really interested in trying this out, although I don't know if I'm ever going to have the space or the money for that kind of thing. Who knows? Anyway, so that was interesting, but that's also something to do with traction. That's why I mention it now. So, okay, back into the comments for a second to see what anybody else has suggested we talk about. The Akai Force, am I interested in that? Not really. I am, but you know. The Electron Sampler, no, I think I talked about that last time, did I? Maybe I didn't. Okay, the Electron model samples. What sort of name is that? Right, as you may know, if you're an avid watcher of my videos, is that I don't really rate. No, it's not right. I'm not into personally Electron particularly. Now I know that there are people who would die for Electron, who's, you know, if their chest was a cannon, they would fire their heart upon the Electron drum machines and groove machines, that kind of thing, because they're phenomenal, they're fantastic. The workflow is just like, wow, they're like zip, man, and it's fantastic, and it's just so groovy and cool and hipster and all these other things. And they just, sadly, they leave me rather cold. They're just boxes that, you know, I don't know. Anyway, probably for completely unsubstantiated reasons, I have got it into my head that I don't like Electron, and so I don't. So I'm always interested when another one of their boxes comes out, but I'm just assuming it's going to be the same as all the rest, because they just look all the same to me. And then they release a new one, and it looks really crappy. And you think, oh, well, I mean, at least most of their stuff usually looks good, but this doesn't even look good. Oh dear. I mean, it looks like something Yamaha would produce. It's that bad, you know, in this horrible off-white, like medical plastic type thing. And it's got samples in it, 6 tracks of samples. Is that all they can muster? I mean, you know, what it feels like is something like a Yamaha SU10. Do you remember the SU10? You know, a little tiny sampler that you'd sample into, and it had a little strip on it that you'd scratch the samples and stuff. It looks like something really, really basic and looks crap and doesn't have any outputs. I mean, all the usual things that Electron are very good at, producing big, you know, properly connected things, it just seemed really, really lacking. But then a couple of demos come along and it's like, oh, that's all right. And there's one guy who did a demo who put all these stickers all over it, and instantly it looked 1,000 times better. It really did, just by putting stickers on it. Because honestly, the look is awful. And the name is awful. Model, samples. I don't know. I don't get that. But no one asked me to name stuff, so I don't know anything about it, obviously. But no, this is, as I said at the beginning, I do criticise stuff, I do share an opinion, and that doesn't mean that you're crap because you like it. If you like it, that's fine. We love you still, and that's all right. Feel warm and safe in your own opinion and your own way of looking at something. Sounds like it's snowing, blizzarding outside now at this point. How are we doing? 9:30. I've nearly finished my beer. Deluge, yeah. Akai Force, yeah. Samplers do tend to be lifeless, says Mr. Imperfect. Oh, it's very nice to be humble like that in your naming of yourself. Yeah, don't have to be. I mean, I've got nothing against samplers as such. No, got nothing against samplers as such. It's just perhaps not my bag, man. Okay, I've reached the bottom. Okay, I'll go back up a bit and see what I've missed out. So Electron is Swedish. I don't even know if I knew that. I assumed they were German. Does that make any difference? I don't know. But I don't know. Well, they're just kind of European, innit? And we don't like Europe anymore for some reasons. What we don't understand. Clip stacks. Yeah. I thought that was good. So what haven't we talked about? Yeah. Tupac versus Biggie? I don't know. Oh, you're still talking about East Coast, West Coast. Yes, thank you. Yep, answered that. Check in. Catalyst, yeah. Just going over stuff. Behringer Crave apparently is $199. All right. Fair enough. We'll find out more about it after this. Okay, so the other synthesizer, which is interesting, was the Korg Minilog XD. Now, the Minilog is an interesting synth from a couple of years ago, when it was kind of the first time that Korg showed their hand at how good they are at making analog polyphonic synthesizers. 4-voice polyphony on a decent sized keyboard, a grey sort of silvery thing with, I know I keep saying this, but I just felt that the rake on the keyboard and the placement of the knobs was just slightly imbalanced. It gave a weird feel to it, but I really enjoyed the little screen, and I quite enjoyed playing on one at Synthfest. Yeah, quite like the Minilog. Cool. And then last year, the what do they call it? The Prologue. God, I'm losing my mind. The Prologue 8 and 16 came out. Awesome. Proper synthesizer, proper sized keyboard, stuff all over it, dark black, 8 voices of polyphony. Yeah, great. But it's the kind of thing that I would love to have. It kind of reminds me of a Prophet 5. It reminds me of that sort of level of keyboard. And it looked good, felt professional, felt like it knew what they were doing. Had this interesting thing with the oscillators inside. Yeah, a lot of good stuff with that. I would love to have one of those, but it's too big. I've got no room for that kind of thing, and it's not going to work in the house either. It'll take up far too much of our kitchen sideboard. So when the Minilog XD came along, I thought, maybe they've sorted this out. I mean, it's a smaller keyboard, base station size, I suppose. No, the size of the original one, but the knobs seem to be better laid out. They'd somehow just tweaked it a bit, and it felt better. The colour was good. They've tweaked the filter, but more importantly, they've put in the Prologue oscillator. Now, by that I mean there's a digital oscillator that's stuck in there. There's 2 analog oscillators and 1 digital one, and the digital one can be loaded up with other weird and crazy things. People in the community programming their own oscillators and sticking it in. You can take the open source Platts, which is probably what Arturia did, stuff that in there, and use that. I mean, that's phenomenal. Very, very interesting. But also it's 4-note polyphony, and it's got a sequencer built in. So it's quite a little powerhouse of a synth. And I kind of want one, I think, because the price is also better, because the Prologues are $1,000, whereas this is going to be more like 400-500 quid. That does appeal, because it's a nice looking thing as well. I didn't like the look of the previous version, whereas this just seems to be a bit more of a sweet spot. The only thing that's slightly holding me back at the moment is that you probably couldn't play pads on it properly, because that's the thing that's missing from my Eurorack music at the moment, is I just want I just want to play some nice pads underneath. Now I can do that with a computer based something or other, but I'd quite like to have a synth to do it. That seemed to be it, but with 4 notes, you're going to be stealing notes. I mean, I quite happily play a 4-note chord, but then you can't play the next one without stealing voices. So you kind of need the Prologue, you need the 8 voice, or you need an 8 voice version of the Minilog. Oh, I don't know. It leaves me in such a quandary. I have to go to a music shop and actually play one. I think that's probably going to be the answer. So yeah, the Minilog, what a great thing. Korg are still doing great things. Korg then. So what else did they do? Well, they also snuck in 2 more Volcas. I think the Volca range of things is brilliant. I mean, they started off with the little mini thing, and then they did the Mono Tribe. I had a Mono Tribe, which I really enjoyed for a bit. Then sold on when I was desperate a while ago, unfortunately. But the whole Volca stuff, I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. I think a lot of people get a lot of pleasure out of those little boxes, because they're they're affordable. I mean, when you're a kid, 150 quid's a lot of money, or 100 quid rather for most of the Volkers. It's still a lot of money, but it's reachable, you know, on your paper round or whatever. And you can get yourself something which is really quite cool and plays all by itself or plays nicely with other things. So Korg released the Volcom Modular, which is a flipping booklet. That's what it looks like. It's a music easel, you know, very, very slimmed down music easel, stuffed into a Korg Volca size thing with these patch wires. I think that's bloody marvellous. Bloody marvellous, that is. I think that's a great idea. Korg are just, they're out there. They're giving it a go. You know, they're not... I get frustrated with Roland. I would say I get frustrated with Yamaha, but I've written Yamaha off now years ago. There's just nothing. There's nothing coming from them. Although, to be fair, they just released electric sort of stage piano, which I think is actually really good. It's got a bit of a retro vibe to it. Not as much as something wonderful like the Korg SV1, but it's got a bit of a vibe to it. Lots of knobs on the top, you know, electric piano and piano, good stage piano. Good job, Yamaha. Well done. Well done. But I am completely not into the big motif or the Mod X or that kind of thing. That's just not my scene, you know. Just not my thing, man. Not my bag. I know it is some people's, but it just ain't mine. So anyway, Yamaha, don't care. Roland, come on. Just damn it, Roland. Whereas Korg, just year after year, keep releasing good stuff. Good little stuff, good bigger stuff. Fantastic. Really good. The only thing they ever slipped up on was the Odyssey, where they did it with mini keys and charged far too much money. You know, but they're not going to be able to sell those anymore because of the Behringer one. Let's face it. That's what's going to happen. So, yeah, that was good. What else did we do? What else was there? Make Noise did their QPass. They had a new module to display, and I didn't think they were at NAMM, but they ended up being at NAMM, so I don't know whether they were, because I'm pretty sure they're in New York doing their release on like the Thursday or Friday of NAMM, and then Saturday and Sunday they seem to be in NAMM themselves on the floor demonstrating it. And what is it? Oh, who knows? It's Make Noise, isn't it? I mean, you could just, it doesn't really matter. You just start off with something along the lines of, you know, oh, in the mystic movements of sound and sonic textures, they flow and then they ebb and then they're grabbed and then released like so many petals within a bubble that burst and then showered you in sound and movement and the organicness of how it goes through the electric charge and then discharges in such a remarkable way of tonal exploration into the bottomless unknowing of how on earth we came to this place. That's the you know, the general description of the QPass, and I hope that's helpful to you. But putting it apart a little bit, I think inside it's something like 4 filters, right? Yeah, it's like 4 filters in a single module that you stuff stuff in and you filter in, it comes out the other end. Sounds great, like all their stuff, and it is actually really interesting, I think. And am I ever going to pick up one of those? I don't know, but it would be on my shopping list, I think. It's just quite hardcore. I mean, it's like with a lot of stuff, I still feel there's things missing, some basics I haven't quite got the grasp of before I then move into the weird esoteric stuff. I mean, that's why I got hold of a load of kits. Part of my whole DIY push is because I ran out of money. I mean, that's the first thing. And the second thing is I just need some more basic, interesting things. So, I don't know. Flipping Euro rack, it's hard. It's really hard because you're stuck in a situation where you really want to make the best of what you've got. Because what you've got is phenomenal. And then these other modules come out and you're going, oh yeah, but I could I? But then I'm going to have to buy a whole other case. So it's maddening. And no doubt I will. I mean, I've already, look, my case is full, right? And I've got half a dozen modules over the back here just knocking about. You know, things like this. I mean, what's this? I mean, this is my Basimilis Iteratus Altar, for heaven's sake. That's sitting there, not doing anything. It's not even plugged in. Why is that? Oh, it's just, nuts. Completely nuts. But there we go. So yeah, Make Noise released this QPass thing, quad perplexing random arseholes or something. I can't remember what it's called. But something along those lines. There's a few filters and it sounds great and it's awesome and it looks fantastic and it's got an awesome description. So cool, go check that out. Noise Engineering also released some stuff, which there's no way I'm going to remember any of the names of because it's all in Crazy Talk. But their Crazy Talk stuff, they had a little Crazy Talk thing. Oh, they had a distortion. They have this thing about why they want to release a distortion every month for the next few months. And this was a triple distortion called Triple-Atus Archipicatus. And it's got 3 lots of distortion in, which you can use together or separately. Yeah, quite nice. The other thing they had was... No, it escapes me completely. Something they had already, something to do with envelopes or low pass. It's got a low pass gate. Oh, low pass gate inside that does something or other. Then they had this big one called the CIP, the Cranulus Icopicatus Perperpicus, and that did sort of noises and stuff. I didn't really get to the bottom of what that was. Something. They had 5 tone controls, had lots of tone controls, lots of envelopes. Was it just a complex oscillator? Or was it more? I wrote it up, but I don't really have any clue what that is. So that was fun. So that's coming along. Okay, anybody else? Anything we haven't talked about? People like to talk about? Da, 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 da. What would be your desert island synthesizer? My desert island synthesizer would be one that I could make into a boat. Well, there you go, see? Desert island synthesizer would have to be one of those big Yamaha things that you would never get to the bottom of all the presets. Or an enormous Eurorack that went around half the island. So you had to have patch cables that were 3 miles long. That would work. Justin Rivas, hi, welcome. You're so welcome here. Welcome, this is the first one you've only ever been able to catch. Now, can I think of a particularly directed insult at you so you'll never come back? No, you're just welcome. So awesome for being here. And you're at NAMM? Great for you. I hope you haven't caught something. I hope your mind has been completely blown out of its mind. I mean, the music technology side is great, but it's containable. You know, it's in one hall. If you're into guitars, NAMM's impossible. It's just impossible. There's so much guitar stuff. I mean, I was talking to Matt, if you're still here, about this on Twitter, about how. Are we ever going to reach a critical mass with Eurorack modules where every module has been produced? And are they then just selling us the same thing over and over again? Are manufacturers having to reinvent themselves, reinvent modules? And it's like, well, look at guitars, man. There's been 2 basic shapes of guitar for 50 years, and they're still selling it to us. There's still row upon row of Strats, row upon row Telecasters, row upon row of Gibsons, I suppose. Although Gibson, of course, is all a bit up and down these days. But it's the same thing. Well, at least, obviously, you can't say that to a proper guitar head because they'll go, oh no. But see, there's 1,400 more twists of copper on that humbucker bit there. And there's 3 mil difference between the headstock there and the bit here. And then the type of wood, the sort of maple that's in this neck has been growing for 10 years longer than the maple in the other neck. And therefore, the sound is radically different. Yeah, so, I mean... Fender have been selling us the same guitar forever, and we still buy it, and everyone has 6 of them. So I don't think there's any problem with synth manufacturers selling us the same synth over and over again, because we like it, because there's something awesome, there's something natural and fleshy in the grabbing of a new piece of gear and wrestling with it, and the lights and the look of it and how it's different. It may just be another oscillator, the same as any other oscillator that you've got, but it's a different one, and we enjoy and connect to that experience of the transaction that we go through the whole thing. We have a desire, we have a visual response, an emotional response to something. We then we go through the psychological decision in order to purchase it. We then make that transaction, we then receive the goods, that gives us joy, and then we plug it in, play with it for 5 minutes, and then stick it on eBay. And that whole transactional circle just makes us happy, and that's all right, isn't it? Isn't that all right, just to be doing that? It doesn't have to have any more meaning than that, I don't think, in our search just for inspiration and something interesting. in our lives, in our bland lives. We're looking for something interesting in a box that goes bing. Good evening, Ian. It's good to have you with us. I think probably a little late. That's all right. Is NAMM over? No, it ain't. No, it ain't over. Not quite. Fat Lady ain't sang because they're a million hours behind us, so they're still knocking around Sunday night. I mean, I've done NAMM both as a spectator and also as a person who's run a stand, and it's such an event. I mean, you are just knackered. You're knackered before and you're knackered after. First of all, you've got the flight out there which knackers you. You've then got a couple of days trying to build your stand with and you have to use their work people, their carpenters and bits and pieces to put your stand together because of unions or something, which is cool. Support your unions. Yeah, I don't know, I'm into all that, man. It's just a weird experience the way that it's forced upon you. You can build your own stand, but you must also use these people as well. So you're kind of telling them what to do, and then every half an hour they have to go and have a break. So during the hours of work, you're kind of trying to direct people how to put your stand together, and they do that for a bit, and then they clear off, and then you put the whole thing together yourself overnight, and then sort all that out, and then somebody breaks something, and you have to spend your time running around Los Angeles trying to find like computer power supplies or cables or bits and pieces. And so when it actually comes to the Thursday when it opens, you are just knackered already, and you're pissed off, and your voice has gone from shouting at the union people, and you can't get anything quite to work like you expected it to, and then you remember you forgot something that's vital. But anyway, and then you get started, and then the thing kicks off, and then there's just a constant stream of people talking to you, and they're not always interested in what you're doing. They look at you, and you try to tell them about your fabulous computer or whatever it is that you're showing, and they just glaze over, and and that's that. And you do it time and time and time again, talking the same stuff over and over again. It drives you nuts, bonkers. And that's the Thursday. The Thursday night, you're so knackered, but you've just met some guy who you clicked with for some reason from, I don't know, Avid, and they've got a party, so you go to that party and get completely slaughtered. Then you go to some guitarist party and you don't know anybody and you're not sure why you're there, and then you go home, and then you have to do the whole thing all over again. And then Friday night you're off to some other party that you don't understand or know about, and you talk to some guy like he's been your best mate for your whole life. You've no idea who he is, and then you work out that he's a distributor of a product that just lives down the road for you back in the UK that you could have met up for a coffee in London, But here we are in NAMM, getting arrested for doing a wee up a wall at some Disney resort. Or then you're stuck in LA, not having any clue where you are, getting into really some dodgy areas, trying to get home. I mean, the first year I went, we stayed on Hollywood Boulevard. I mean, what a horrible place that is. I mean, after hours. It's probably nice during tourist time, but just nipping out to try to find a McDonald's, God, you take your life in your hands. Yeah, we were just down the road in a hotel from the Chinese Theatre, because that particular year, for a couple of years, was at the LA Convention Center rather than at Anaheim. And so we were in a completely different place. But fascinating, not putting downer on going to parties and stuff. I mean, there was one night, because I was a smoker as well then, which is good because you get the chance to have a real reason to take a break from all the noise and craziness that's happening at NAMM. You can step outside and feel cool because you're there out with all the rock stars smoking as well. I don't even know if you're allowed to smoke in America at all these days, but anyway, we were doing so then. So I was standing outside some party or some gig or other. I think Herbie Hancock was playing, and so I just nipped out for a cigarette. And this guy came over to bum a fag off me. Sorry, to borrow or ask for a cigarette for Americans watching, if you don't understand that phrase. And I had roll-ups, so he was struggling away with this roll-up. And it turned out, as I was chatting to this guy, he was the guitarist from Primus, who I think is phenomenal. Can't remember his name now, of course. And then people from Marshall or something was going past, and he was shouting abuse at them. And we're just sort of standing around, me and my colleague, sort of rolling cigarettes and smoking with this guy who was a bit sort of lost it, and we're shouting about how they don't endorse him and short to endorse him because, you know, don't you know who I am? And, you know, I wrote the music to South Park, you know, and stuff, and how famous he was. And that was hilarious. And then we had the guys from Saxon, Saxon band, also joined us at one point. And you just have these very surreal moments. Because, I mean, the interesting thing about NAMM is because it's a trade show, that there are celebrities there, but they're there with people who are in the trade. It's very different than being in a public show. Because there's a certain level of understanding that, you know, I'm a sound engineer and I'm engineering for Madonna and stuff. You're not there in awe of these people. You're there working together, you know, trying to believe that you're something like an equal. So the experience you have with celebrities and rock stars and bits and pieces at these sort of shows is just different because they are more relaxed. They're not in a you know, rock star fan type situation. They're in a working situation, and usually they're there at work, you know, endorsing a product or something or other. And so there's a much leveler playing field, so it's a very different situation, and it is interesting. You're just rubbing shoulders with these people, just feeling the bizarreness of it all, and how these are normal guys and normal women, you know, normal people, and that's cool. So and then when you get to the end of NAMM on the Sunday night, you're desperate just to go home, but you know you've got to pack the bugger up. That's going to take you for ages. Got to wrap the whole thing up onto some kind of stand before you can go anywhere. Oh man, it's nuts. This takes forever. But the best thing about one particular NAMM was that I was the last one to leave, I think, so I was going somewhere else to take some stuff to something or other. I can't remember. Anyway, so I got to the airport and I had like 5 hours before my flight. So I got on a taxi and says, well, take me to Santa Monica. Let's go to Santa Monica Boulevard, like the song. And so off he took me, and I wandered around. It's kind of a nice place, certainly better than LA, and wandered down the pier. And I sat on the end of the pier looking over the Pacific Ocean, I guess it is. And there was a jazz band playing, and the sun was out, and I didn't have any bags, so I checked in all my luggage, and I was just there having a smoke and a coffee, and it was fantastic. And to top it all, an ex-girlfriend phoned me up on my mobile phone, and this was, you know, early days of mobile phones. This was a few years ago, and I was I still a little sore about it? I can't remember exactly, but anyway, she phoned me up for one reason, and I just chatted to her, and I chatted to her for ages because the phone bill would have been astronomical. Because she was phoning mobile phone to mobile phone, and I was in LA. So I thought that was immensely amusing. And then I had an enormous flight home. So yeah, so that's NAMM. Why am I talking about this? I can't remember. But it's a good time. You do get to meet a lot of people, but it is also exhausting. Absolutely full on exhausting. Cool. And yeah, cool. Okay, I'm just going to scan back through this. It's 5 to 10, so we're going to probably start winding it up in a minute, and I'm worried that there's things that I haven't thought of, that I haven't spoken about, and that's your fault if you haven't brought them up, all right? What were the other big releases? The model, cowbell. Yes, that would be great. Oh, arse. Hello, Mr. Potate. Hello, lots of hellos. Great. Yeah, no, it's very much like a sci-fi convention. Yeah, it is. It's very much that. Just more guitars. More guitars than anything you could possibly imagine. Andrew, honestly, we miss you when you're not here, you know. It's all very well you being out doing something cool, but, you know, things are important. You need to prioritise, you know. Da da da. Right, now I don't think I missed anything because you lot are just talking nonsense like you usually do. So who's the oldest person here then? People talking about I've been synthing since 19 this, that and the other. I am I am 48. Anyone older than 48? Anyone could beat me on 48? Must be some old farts here somewhere. I'm good at abusing old age pensioners. So I was told. Huh? Oh, you lost your studio in 1981. Oh, that could have been me. I was 11. I was a cheeky little chappy. I could have climbed in through a window and ran off with everything. I did get broken into once in my flat in London, and they stole a laptop and a camera. I mean, I had thousands of pounds worth of gear sitting around, and the idiots stole a crappy laptop and the camera. I mean, honestly, really? The quality of thieves these days, they just don't have a clue. They could have taken a guitar, for heaven's sake, at the very least, or computers I had lying around. Duh. Rubbish. But that was an awful thing to happen to you. Oh, wow, crikey, you actually answered my question. Wow, nuts. Jim, 66. Oh, that's winning. Is that winning? 63 from John. A couple of 50s, Pat and Andrew. Tricky Pudge, 55. I'll be there. Brian, 44. You're a baby. You're a baby. Gosh, you're 51 this year. Yeah, I'll be 49 this year. 50s. Any opinions, Vincent? You know, this does happen, and I'm sorry to the world, but my name is Robin. Robin Vincent. Vincent is my surname. I mean, maybe it's a cultural thing, you know. You're like trying to be chummy like you are in the military. You call me by your last name, or like people did when you're at middle school. Maybe it's that, I don't know. But I often get called Vincent because I guess it's a first name. It's never been a first name to me. It's always considered it to be a surname because it's my surname. So yeah, Robin. Doesn't matter. I just, you know, it doesn't get me or anything. So what was the opinion about Edgeflow? You're asking my opinion on something? What was it on? So I've talked about Crave, well, briefly, Microfreak and PO Modular, and that's NAMM in a shell, in a nutshell. It is. I mean, you need to stick in there the MS-101, the RD-808, although we knew about that already, but it's good to see them, and the Odyssey. It was good to see them all being played and introduced properly, because I realised, watching the introduction videos, that we've never actually heard them. All we've done is seen stuff and heard people talk about them. So it was good to see them actually working in action. So that was cool. Milog XD, really liked that. What else stuck out? The Mock, the Wave Razor, and the 1010 music thing. I like the Qubit modules very much, like the QPass. I like the Dreadbox effects, the Hypnosis and the Strange Chorus pedal. Thought that was nice. I really like that trend. I really like what they've done. They've taken a guitar pedal, excuse me, and they've acknowledged the fact that synthesizer people are using guitar pedals in their setups, and they've stuck some CV on it and at the sort of levels that synthesizers and Eurorack would understand. So taking a guitar pedal, which we could use, and you could still use it as a guitar pedal, but building in a bit more stuff to make it appeal to a wider audience. Brilliant. Do that. Yeah, that's great. And the desktop effects with the Hypnosis thing just looks crazy. Weird. I mean, at one point I might have gone for desktop synthesizers and had a great big kitchen table full of these different boxes, and I think that's awesome. That's an awesome way to go these days. I just happen to go Eurorack. It's a different experience, I suppose, but you can still incorporate these things in. I really like that. I hope to see more effects done that way. Core Gadget. Oh, it's disappointing, because one of the great things about Core Gadget is that the songwriting environment within it is actually pretty cool, particularly on a touchscreen. That would be great on the Surface, but we're just getting the sounds. I mean, the sounds are alright, a bunch of drum machines and a bunch of little synths and stuff. Yeah, that's alright. It's just not quite as exciting as the whole package. But there we go. I mean, it's something, isn't it? It's something. Of course, it'll be really horribly expensive on Windows, because it is, as opposed to an app being like a £5. Now we've got to pay 100 quid. And we just get the plugins. So Jim, yeah, I think at 66 you are probably the oldest. Native Instruments. Yes, Native Instruments. Thank you, Native Instruments. I did get wind of that because I have a special relationship with Native Instruments, so I did know about their stuff before now. I wasn't allowed to say anything, of course. The new little keyboard, yeah, that's cool. That's nice if you need a new little keyboard. I like the fact that it still works with NKS and the whole complete control connection. That's good. I like it. It's a very positive thing. And a lot of other synthesizer soft synth manufacturers are taking that on, making the whole experience of playing software and hardware together easier. That's a good thing. Also, they are including the machine software, the full version of the machine software, with all their stuff now, which is great because it's a decent sequencer, Groovebox type sequencer. And it's great to use, easy to use, and absolutely they should have been doing that from the beginning. I'm glad they are. They've also released this thing called Complete Start, which is a whole bundle of some decent stuff that's completely free. So yeah, get a hold of that. That should also include the machine software, but it doesn't. But never mind, you get the machine software if you buy a piece of hardware. So the little keyboard, great, love that. The little audio interfaces, interesting, because I've always liked the Audio 6, the Complete Audio 6. I mean, that's been around for 7 or 8 years now. And its performance is great, its drivers are great, the little form factor with the volume knob on top, great, 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 all of it good, a few ins and outs, great, what a great box. And I've always wanted them to do something more with that, a slightly bigger version, slightly more interesting version, more ins and outs, an updated version in any respects. I think would be very, very welcome. So the little Audio 1 and the Audio 2, great. You know, done in a similar style with a knob on the top, very, very simple. It'll be £100. It could be a decent little stereo in out box to have, just to have for mobile moving about. Simple, light, USB powered. Yeah, if the drivers work as well as the Audio 6, it's going to be a great little box. Quite pleased with that. What else was there? Some kind of tractor thing that I'm not that interested in. So yeah, native instruments, that was cool. Other audio interfaces then, the Sonos from Audient is a retro vintagey looking box with a flipping tube stuck in it, a nice valve in there glowing away, stick your guitar in, it's got inbuilt DSP running, cabinet simulations, that kind of thing. Nice, awesome, like that. Audient make big decent audio interfaces anyway, and it has an ADAT input so you can expand it into 8 ins. Nice, yeah, nice box that. Akai Multimedia, the Axe IO, yeah, I mean they're so rock and roll. Akai Multimedia, or at least they attempt to live in that rock and roll world where it's all and big and hype and craziness, which doesn't always get worked out in their products, but it looks pretty decent. Of course it all ties into Amplitube, which is going to be software driven, but it does have both pure and JFET Class A inputs, and you can also match the impedance to your pickups, which is all those sorts of words together are not really things I fully understand, but there we go. Looked like a decent interface. And Presonus, Presonus are rock and roll with the hype. They have a particular gift for projecting this idea of excellence, this idea of extraordinary things are about to happen, and that just makes me laugh because they do it all the time, and it's like days before now, I've got something special to reveal, got these awesome things to reveal, you just wait, it's going to be fantastic. And then they even sent in a picture of this table covered with a cloth, we're just getting ready for NAMM, really there, ready to reveal, it's going to be fantastic, you ready for this, are you ready for this? Everyone's like leaning, oh my god, what's it going to be, and they go, ta-da, it's a bunch of audio interfaces that we've had for years, but we've just put a USB-C port on the back. It's like, oh, okay then, they look the same as the other stuff. But USB-C, great, wow, that's forward looking. I mean, that's unfair actually, because the 1810, I think it is, has DC coupled outputs, so you've got, I think, 6 outputs that you could run control voltage through directly from your software. That's pretty cool. I wish more people did that. So yeah, all right, they're pretty cool, but they're honestly, Presonus, you need to not take yourself quite so seriously. Because yeah, it's new stuff, but it ain't that new, is it? Really? Is it? Yeah, that's funny. Can't think of any other audio interfaces. Well, Audio Fuse, I mentioned that. Yeah, a bit chunky looking. Could be good. Audio Fuse Studio, and also released a preamp to expand it, which is cool because the original Audio Fuse has ADAT in, and I've got a Behringer mic pre down here that I use into it. So yeah, there's some possibilities. That's good, I think, because I like the Audio Fuse as an audio interface. Although I heard people handling it, that doesn't feel as good as it looks. I don't know, difficult to say. Yes, Robin Vincent, that's right, yes, that's who I am. I say my name every time. I'm not criticising you or anything. Microfreak, yeah, Microfreak. So we like that. We like that. Yeah. Don't know what that is. What was it? Yeah, somebody asked my opinion on something, but I still don't know what that was. So checking through, is there anything else I forgot? Akai Force, yeah, that's alright. Plasma, yeah, quite like the plasma distortion. I don't know why. I mean, somebody was rubbishing it on the internet, talking about how, well, it's just a method of distortion. It's not very exciting or interesting. It's just a flashing light that we like. Yeah, alright, just a flashing light. It sounds a bit crunchy, but that's pretty cool, I think. I mean, it's not only is there the foot pedal, there's now the Erica Synths one, which of course is going to be awesome. Has to be. And now there's a rack unit one as well, with a dirty, great big tube in it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. Rossum Trident. Yeah. Okay, yeah, the Rossum Trident. They, again, I think we're in a dodgy hotel room. And the funny thing was, I watched it directly after watching the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Rocket Operator Modular video, where Tobias Guy was fumbling around with this thing that didn't really make any noise and nobody knew how to work it. So you kind of went from that disaster of a demo down to Dave Rossum with his Trident, which was the complete opposite. I mean, not that it was an entertaining demo, but it was a precise, like, this is an awesome thing, right? I'm going to show you waveforms, and I'm going to show you mixing of waveforms and how waveforms change. That's really interesting. And how the sound changes. That's really interesting. Look what this knob does. And we can do this, and we can fold this into that. I can't remember much about what it is, but it was three things, wasn't it? It was two oscillators, modulator, and another oscillator. So it's something you can probably already do in your rack with your oscillators that already exist, but this does it in a single sort of unit. And the name Ensemble I didn't really like, because that gives me the impression that it's going to play sort of chords, which it kind of can, but it's not really about that. It's about modulating things with other things and how that folds the waveforms and makes interesting things. So he had the whole oscilloscope thing going and just talked about his own product really, really intelligently. And it was the exact opposite of what Teenage Engineering had just done. And I thought that was really interesting. It's a big module, though. Lots of these big modules about. I don't have the room for them. Don't have the room for them. What a great bunch of folks. Yes, you are. You are lovely, all of you. Love you dearly. Oh, wow, your house burnt down? That sucks, man. Yeah. You lost 100 synths and 100 drum machines. Well, you clearly weren't using them. It was the universe's way of saying to you, this is all gathering dust and it's a waste of time. It's wasted on you, man. You know, these need to be returned to the earth so that they can be reborn as Behringer clones, so that somebody else more deserving can enjoy them. You know, we have to look after our gear and just not have so much of it. We have to appreciate what we have. Yeah, obviously I'm talking nonsense. That sounds awful, mate. Sounds awful. What a terrible thing to happen. Terrible, terrible. I still don't know what it was somebody wanted my opinion of. Alright, so I'm just going to check through my NAMM list here to see whether there's anything that I've forgotten. Just quickly. There's plenty of pianos. That's not very interesting. The booklet, we did that. Oh, the Flame Mander. Flame Mander 4-voice desktop synth. Yeah, got a lot of interest in that on Gear News. I can't really tell you much about it. It was like a... What's this thing here? See that? Sort of a desktop synth. Got 4 voices. Got this massive filter bank on it. If you've not seen that, go and check it out. The Flame Mander. M-A-A. And the A's got an umlaut thingy, dotty things on the top. Mander. So there's a synthesizer with a sequencer, arpeggiator, and this huge filter bank thing going on. Very sort of different, I suppose. Pro 1, we talked about that. Odyssey, yeah, blah, blah. The Kira did that. Roland Cloud, don't care about that. Noise Engineering. IntelliGel, yeah. The scales, I've got a microscale here. IntelliGel, it's my only IntelliGel product, module. And they've got a new one called Scales, which just bigs it up, really. Makes it more stuff going on. You can modulate it more, change things more. But otherwise, it's kind of more of the same, I suppose. But they've made it simpler, which is good, because it can get a little bit, oh, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Whereas they really seem to have simplified it while producing more features. That's good. And a thing called Steppy, which is a gate sequencer, which also looked quite interesting. So it's just solid, interesting stuff from the IntelliGel this year. 2 HP. Oh, the Moog Siren. We didn't mention that. I mean, what a beautiful thing. Now, I know it's a flipping Minotaur. I know it is. But the Minotaur is always, for my money, looked a bit crappy. It's not interest me at all. So what they've done is taken the Minotaur and given it a bit of the grandmother colour, and it just looks beautiful. And they presented it beautifully, and the backgrounds are all really hippie and groovy, and you think, oh, well, that's lovely. What a great thing. I've never seen it before. It's completely new to me. What a fabulous thing. Well done. Well done. And that's great. And it's different to the Minotaur because it doesn't go as low. It goes high, because the Minotaur is a bass synth. It's all about bass notes. Whereas the Siren, assuming that's how you pronounce it, is all about higher registers. So it's a more of a lead synth. But what a great looking thing. Lovely. What a lovely thing. Next to that is the Stylophone Gen R8. So yeah, Stylophone, that looks pretty good. I mean, I don't think we've quite got to the bottom of it yet. The demos have been a bit hit and miss. But it's a good size thing like this. It's a bit of a dodgy picture. So it's nothing like a Stylophone. I mean, I saw some videos where your man was saying, so is it like a Stylophone? No, it's not like a Stylophone. This is a proper synthesizer. So it's got proper synthy stuff in it. I mean, they did something similar with the Stylophone 2, but it was a complete mystery. None of the knobs were labelled. It didn't seem to make any sense. It was like, what is this? But with this, Stylophone Gen R8, it's a proper semi-modular monophonic synthesizer, you know, with all the stuff that's supposed to have. And it's got a good grit in it. It's got a British filter. Yeah, cool. Good attempt at doing a proper synthesizer. Well done. So I'll be interested in seeing more about that. Blah, blah, MS, what's it? Can you see this as I'm... Which way does it go better? There we go. As I'm going through it. Steinberg, bunch of synths, Absolute 4. Yeah, that looks pretty good. There's the Trident. Steady State Fate did their stereo dipole filter, but apparently we saw that at Super Booth. Plankton. They got a module including the Korg Newtone thing in a module. Not sure what that does. But it's good to see Plankton move further on now from the Ants, which is their little semi-modular synth they kick-started a year or so ago. More pianos. Hive 2 from Yuhi. Didn't really get to see much of that other than to know that it existed. Oh, Akai produced this quite interesting stage piano. Wasn't a stage piano controller. So no sounds inside, just a controller. Just a good blank, goes in a case, take it with you, MIDI controller. Pretty good, I thought. Pretty good. Erica Synths have released their sample drum. That's cool. There, Erica Synths, Gadget, Plugin Alliance, something or other. Oh, the Archie from Expressive E, but I think I talked about that last month, so I think that's probably as far as we need to go. Yeah, that'll do. So yeah, I think that's it. Any other last requests? Let me go to the bottom of the comments, see how we're doing, because it's late now. I probably need to go to bed. Stylophone sounds like a wasp, says Tricky Pudge. Okay. Interesting. That's cool. Flamanda. Yeah. New iPad Pros are more fast than a PC Core i7. Thank you for that, Blue Sunset. Thank you for playing. Awesome. Keep drinking the Kool-Aid, man. That's fantastic. Yeah, well, they should run desktop software then, shouldn't they? Shouldn't they? Don't you think? Oh dear. Yeah, the White Casio Previa. All right then. Yeah, I mean Casio. I mean, yeah. I mean, really? I mean, they keep doing their thing, man. They just keep doing their thing. I'm always reminded that back in 1980s, I was in Cook's Music in Norwich playing on a CZ101, thinking it was just the most fantastic thing I'd ever discovered. And I think it's so sad that they haven't appreciated the demand for something like that these days, and they could just pump something out. I mean, they keep, no doubt, make wonderful instruments for the whole workstation automatic accompaniment kind of vibe, and they do some great pianos. I really liked the new glossy, shiny Privia pianos where the lights disappeared. I mean, you've got to have a quirk on something to make it interesting. So they've got a decent piano, and it's got lights on it that light up, and you do things with a touchness, and then you turn it off, and they all vanish like they were never there. That's cool. I like that. That's reason enough to talk about it. But I really love them just to go, sod it, let's release the CZ101. Let's do it, man. Just re-release it. It'll be great. Everyone will buy it. They've also got lots of other little tiny synths they used to do. They're all great. They should just do it. Why not? Why not do that? Why not? No, I missed that conversation, whatever that conversation's about. Shannon, Nano Studio 2 is most valuable if you have dozens of AU plugins already. I don't know what that is. Any news on Bitwig 3? Yes, the beta will be out in February, shortly. So we'll get a chance to have a play. And it will probably be out, I imagine, March, April time. Probably in time for Super Booth. It'll be cool, man. Looking forward to that. Rolling Clouds, amazing. Yeah, it's an amazing thing. They released the World Instrument Collection. Awesome. SRX World Instruments. You got your sitars and your pan flutes and all that kind of jazz, because that's world music, isn't it? It's not Western music, it's everything else music. Yeah, and some drums. Great. Nano Studio 2, don't know what that is. Da da da. Yeah, so I mean, I don't mean to get into your conversations here, because obviously it's nothing to do with me. Cool, yeah, right. So I guess we should just bring it to a close. I mean, I seem to be enjoying the sound of my own voice at the moment. That's cool. Right. So, yeah, that'll do us. So what is the plan coming forward from here then? Now that we've done NAMM. So my shopping list, if anybody's interested, what I think, from what I saw, I felt quite inspired to have a couple of synths. I mean, I've got a Base Station 2. That has served me long and hard, and I've used it in gigs, and I tend to use it actually more as a MIDI controller than anything else. But it's cool. It's good. I've enjoyed it. I've got this Microkorg over here, Microkorg XL, which I use occasionally in gigs when I just need a normal, a couple of normal-ish sounds that you can just dial up and go. And I also use that as a MIDI controller. Would I really like to have some proper synths now? Then yeah, I would. I would honestly buy an RD808. I was thinking about this, that my youth was probably more heavily influenced by the Lindrum. The Lindrum and maybe the 909 more than the 808. Because the 808 is actually a little bit, measly in some ways, a little bit blinky blonky. Whereas I like the big doom of the Lindrum, big sampled sounds coming in. I did as a kid anyway, I like that. I like the Fairlight thing, like Synclavier thing. That thing thrilled me as a kid, the emergence of digital stuff, more than the analog stuff at the time. That's just how it was. But anyway, but the drum machine-ness of the RD808 is brilliant. I love that. I love the idea of having that. I love the idea of having it on a coffee table and people being able to play. I like that. I like having an MS-101 sitting next to that to play a bass line with it. I would quite like a Micro Freak because it's different and it appeals to me more than the other Arturia synths done, because The microbrute and stuff just seems a bit too much similar to my base station. Whereas this seems a bit different. I quite like that. Would I like an Odyssey? I don't know. I mean, I played with the Korg ones at Synthfest a while ago, and I found it quite unintuitive and uninteresting, oddly. But it is a good sized synth. And then there's the Minilog XD, which I really like the form factor of. I just don't know whether the polyphony is going to be enough. So, you know, you could see that I somehow, if I could pull a grand together, if I could pull together £1,000, that would get me, I think, an RD808, an MS101, possibly a Minilog XD. Those three together. They would make a nice little setup. You know, in the corner of the living room. Maybe get away with that somehow, somewhere, something like that. I think that would be really cool, and I think the kids would really enjoy playing on them, particularly the drum machine, because it makes drum noises without having to do anything. And the something like the sequencer on the SH1 on the MS101 would be awesome. It's a really simple synth to use. I mean, I did use an SH101 years ago. I did borrow one off a friend, and I enjoyed that tremendously. So yeah, those are possibilities in Eurorack. I would love for Qubit to send me stuff, because I don't think I can afford Eurorack at the minute. But I'd really like to try out the Qubit stuff. Really like to try out the Q-Paz from Make Noise. They were the ones that appealed to me the most, I think, out of what we saw this time around. And also, you know, obviously the Mock Wave Razor. But that seems unlikely, I think. So, cool. That's my shopping list. So for me, moving forward... what is coming up? Coming up is I've got some Surface stuff to finish. Now, I appreciate for those out there who are keeping count that I haven't done many videos, December, January. It's just been really, really busy. And then I started doing some stuff on the Surface, started looking at ASIO for all bits and pieces, and that took a whole week of investigating and researching and testing and retesting. So I lost a lot of time in doing that, and then NAMM was upon us and such like. But I've got more stuff to do on the Surface because people are crying out to know the sort of performance it can do with various soft synths, and I really want to be able to demonstrate that. So I've got that to do. I've got some DIY I desperately want to get into, and I want to build my new case for gigging. Talking of which, I've potentially got a gig this Thursday, so there's another open mic coming up this Thursday in Norwich at Gringos. So if you're into electronic music, come along to that, because it should be a blast. And I'm trying to go. I just don't have anything prepared yet, so I want to get something together somehow this week, even though I'm completely snowed with writing work. So moving forward, so a bit of Surface, a bit of DIY I think is going to come next. I've got a Treadstone module to review, and yeah, that's the most pressing stuff I think at the moment. But I've got a lot of work on for the moment from Sound on Sound and other writing gigs and bits and pieces, which is all great, very positive for me, but just it interrupts my video making, which is a shame. But I'll get back to it as hard and as fast as I know you like it to be. I promise. So yeah, that'll do. I'm going to play out with a little bit and see if I can get these drums going again, because that was interesting. Yeah, I'll talk about, if I ever get round to reviewing the Varigate 4 Plus, then that'll form part of that. So thank you very much for coming along. It's good to see you. I love the fact that you're here chatting to me. It's the most awesome thing in the world. And for some reason, I enjoy doing it. We're nearly here for 2.5 hours now. That's nuts. And I've just done nothing but talk. Talk. But if you like what I do, then please subscribe. All the usual stuff. I've got a Patreon. Throw me some dollars. That's awesome. Love all that. Love you. That's great. Shut up is the word that's coming into my head now. So I will do that. What part of the UK am I in? I'm in Norfolk. Norfolk I am. You can probably hear me. You can hear the noise in the shed. If you drive around Norfolk randomly, you will find me. Yes, there we go. Yeah, I'll definitely be doing Bitwig on the Surface. Yes, most definitely. Cool, yeah. All right, I'll play you out. And thanks for dropping in. is the problem with the Varigate, is that I've now gone back to channel 1, which is where my kick drum is, and I can't work out what it's set to, because I've obviously moved all the sliders to do other things. Yeah, enjoying that. Thanks everybody. See you next time. And in the meantime, go and make some tunes.